Is this the best of times for vinyl records? In recent years, there's been speculation that the vinyl revival is going to wind down or it's going to crash. People are leaving. It's getting too expensive. Every so often, high-profile media outlets, YouTube channels seem to want to promote the idea of CDs coming back, CD being the next big thing, or else cassettes, or people are going to go back to streaming. Yet, even while all this is going on, more and more is still coming out on vinyl, including impossibly rare titles being reissued, dug up from the past, more and more that was never released or is all but impossible to obtain, coming out in still relatively affordable editions for a new audience. Thought I would take a look at some that have come my way in recent months, focusing in just on reggae, coming at you once again from the great outdoors while the weather lasts. For those curious about the status of my hydrangeas, turning a bit pink on the bottom, getting more fragrant, but still kind of light green on the top, indicating summer not quite done yet, but on to some recent records. Late last year, going into the early part of this year, the Studio 16 label, straight out of Brixton, UK, put out a couple of their latest titles. They've been doing a scattershot reissue program for a few years now. Kind of random. You never know what they are going to come out with next, but more often than not, it's something good, always remastered by Colin Young at CY Audio, and always affordably priced, appreciated in this day and age. This time around, they put out a title that's been on my wants list for some years, had never gotten around to tracking down. Circa 1975, Lloyd Brevet, the original bass player from the Skatalites, the original Jamaican supergroup of session players that had been at the forefront of ska in the early part of the 1960s. He had been playing with Ras Michael's Sons of Negus troupe and booked some studio time with some of their percussionists at Lee Perry's Black Ark and began laying down some tracks. And for these sessions, he brought in some of his former compatriots in the Skatalites, who had disbanded about a decade previous. These would include Roland Alfonso, Lester Sterling, and Tommy McCook on saxophones, Jackie Matu on keys, and to these he would add some younger, more contemporary players like Augustus Pablo, Benbow Creary, and Horsemouth Wallace on drums. From these initial sessions at the Black Ark, a single was released with a vocal by Lloyd Brevet's brother Tony from the Melodians, a song called Starlight, backed with a dub version reportedly mixed by King Tubby's, quite a rare and sought-after single in its own right, which has also recently been reissued. And soon after, when sessions were continued at Aquarius Studio, a full album was completed, which was released in Jamaica, originally under the title Rebirth, and shortly after The Legendary Skatalites, billing it as a Skatalites reunion, although the project hadn't really been initiated with that concept in mind, to the best of my understanding, and now reissued by Studio 16. The Skatalites Rebirth, not ska, but moving with the times and playing roots reggae instrumentals, very majestic, very dread, very Rastafarian, with the addition of the percussionists from Ras Michael's troupe. Fugitive, actually kind of funky. However, thereafter, the album's history gets very convoluted, as through the rest of the 70s and beyond, it was reissued a number of times with different covers and often under the name African roots, including on the United Artists label in the United States. Not the easiest one to find. It was also put out in the late 1990s by Motion Records, who also reissued some alternative versions of the dub sessions. The original album was shortly after followed by a full-length dub version called Herb Dub Cully Dub, and Studio 16 have also put this out. Dub mixes apparently done at King Tubby's and partially by Carl Pitterson. Some quite well thought out dub mixes to the tracks on Rebirth by the Skatalites. Long out of print, at least since the late 1990s, I believe. Nice to see that one finally out again at a good price.
How we want to go.
Speaking of the great Jamaican horn players, former members of the Skatalites, saxophonist Tommy McCook, who most accounts credit with coining the name Skatalites in the first place, has had his 1977 instrumental album Blazing Horns reissued recently. Always loved this cover art with the flaming letters coming out of the saxophone in the corner. Back cover very evocative as well. Here Tommy's sax is joined by Bobby Ellis on trumpet and floats over rhythms laid down by Sly and Robbie on drums and bass, Clinton Fearon and Albert Griffiths from the Gladiators on guitar, and some rhythms here sourced from Yabby Hughes Productions and will be familiar from his releases. This first appeared in 1977 on the Grove Music label out of the UK, been out of print ever since, save for a CDR edition through Corn-Fed. But it did come out as part of a Blood and Fire release in 2003 called Blazing Horns, Tenor in Roots, paired up with a even rarer album for producer Glenn Brown. And I had, in those Blood and Fire days, some of us who were on the Blood and Fire message board were trading CDRs of rare and out-of-print music back and forth, and around that time I did acquire Blazing Horns in its original format, but in those early days of the internet I was trying to make CD booklets to go along with the discs, but I couldn't find the original cover art for Blazing Horns, so I made my own with some images I found on the internet. Apologies to the artist, Richard Jesse Watson, I believe, but came out pretty well, I think. My homemade CDR booklets just for my own personal use. The lamb laying down with the lion, I think summing up the mood of the music very well. Roots reggae instrumentals, veering between softer, more sentimental approach and full-on blazing roots reggae. That Blazing Horns reissue, by the way, was put out by Solid Roots, a newer reissue label, somewhat mysterious. Does not appear to be too much info out there about them. The releases seem to be pressed in the Netherlands, and some are blocked for sale on Discogs, indicating they may be unauthorized. However, they have put out a handful of very interesting titles, and I picked up a couple more not too long ago. One of them, super rare 1975 album of UK dub and reggae called Contempo by an obscure group called Black Jade. Virtually no information out there about this group. Strange. You would think mid-1970s, at least some of the members must still be around. Someone must know something, but I've never heard too much about them other than they were seen to be handing out promo copies of their records at the 1976 Notting Hill Carnival in the UK. Black Jade, Contempo, heavy bass and drum, dub with some vocals floating through. There were some sound issues on the original copies of it. This is I do have this also on a digital version. The same somewhat distorted bass is present on this, but hearing it on vinyl makes it much more present. The music shines through, as they say. Reissued for the first time ever on vinyl by Solid Roots. Original copies of this will run you several $100s. The only other edition of it that's ever come out is a CDR, equally unauthorized, by the Corn-Fed label. Contempo by Jade. They would put out a full vocal album called Rockers a couple of years later. I have that one and this on digital format, and apparently Rockers is also coming out shortly from the same Solid Roots label. Very obscure, very mysterious classic of UK dub and roots, put out by somewhat equally mysterious label.
This is the dub station from creation.
The Solid Roots label also recently reissued Sons of Jah's 1980 LP Reggae Hit Showcase, first ever vinyl reissue. Sons of Jah was a UK reggae vocal group founded by the enigmatic Trevor Bow, I'm not sure how that's meant to be pronounced. He had roots in Trenchtown, Jamaica, where he had been boyhood friends with Bob Marley, Bunny Wailer, and Peter Tosh. Later on, he was very well connected in the world of reggae, and later moved to the UK, where he was involved in setting up that Grove Music label that had released the Blazing Horns album, and shortly thereafter founded his own Natty Congo label, mostly for his own group, Sons of Jah's releases. Reggae Hit Showcase, appearing in 1980, I believe their third album. And Bow preferred to record in Jamaica for the authentic yard vibes. There was a lot of discrimination, you might say, in England about reggae recorded there as opposed to that from Jamaica, which was seen as more authentic. So he did his primary recording there on here with members of the Wailers like Family Man Barrett on bass, his brother Carly on drums, and also Santa Davis, Chinna Smith, and Wire Lindo, also from the Wailers, with some UK players like Tony Robinson from Aswad and the UK reggae group Zabandis. A couple of instrumentals on here, the Moody Meseret featuring Tantan Thornton on trombone, and I.O., kind of a bluesy guitar instrumental with Bunny Mackenzie on lead, a UK reggae musician whose sister Candy Mackenzie recorded with Lee Scratch Perry at the Black Ark. The rest, some vocals, Zimbabwe Victory Song, anthemic, Eeny Meeny Miny Mo, You've Got to Let Us Go, has a real island era Wailers bounce. And Speak the Truth, a female group called the Negus Daughters, takes on vocals with a DJ by Ranking Reuben. Anthem by Sons of Jah, another very strident roots reggae vocal, reggae hit showcase. I've never had much by Sons of Jah in my collection, so nice to have this reissued by the Solid Roots label. The only other album I've ever had by them, going back to those CDR trading days, was one called Universal Message from 1982, which came after this one, after which I believe the original group disbanded, and Trevor Bow retained the name Sons of Jah for his own releases thereafter. Sadly, he was slain in Jamaica in 1993, somewhat little known today, but rare album reissued for the first time on vinyl exclusively by the Solid Roots label. As if the preceding releases weren't enough, earlier this year, 2025, brought the first ever official vinyl reissue of singer Freddie McKay's long sought after Harsh Words LP, around 1980, 1982-ish. One of the rarest of his albums, virtually all of his highly expensive, hard to procure, but this one of the rarest, finally given a reissue by the only Roots label out of France. Contains the massive Rockabye Woman and Take My Hands, O Jah, along with more by this particularly emotive singer. And if that wasn't enough, as soon as this came out, two other labels put out their own competing editions of the same album. Spoiled for choice in 2025 after decades of this being almost impossible to obtain, very, very expensive. More recently, the Studio One label in the US put out Live Loving, the debut album by Sugar Minott. Similarly out of print for many years. I had sort of low-key been meaning to pick up a used copy at some point, but now out again in print through Studio One with a couple of bonus tracks added to it. Classic debut by this dancehall reggae singer, and perhaps the biggest one of the year came out for Record Store Day of 2025, Sister Nancy's 1-2, containing Bam Bam, the most sampled reggae song of all time. VP Records put this out on baby blue vinyl for Record Store Day. Again, almost impossible to obtain originals of this or even Jamaican reissues from some years later. Was never released anywhere outside Jamaica. Sister Nancy, of course, a female DJ who has gotten her dues in recent years. There's a documentary about her out there about her now. She's out there performing. Her music is more well known than ever before, but the album has been almost impossible to obtain until 2025's bonanza of reissues. The very first YouTube video I ever made, one of the commenters who saw that I was showing reggae asked if I had an original of this. Only took 10 years to finally grab the reissue. Bam Bam, or 1-2 rather, by Sister Nancy. So there you have it, just a handful of what has been coming out in 2025, the latter part of 2024, some incredible stuff that would have blown my mind 20 years ago that I would be able to have in my collection. Hope you've enjoyed, guys. Hope the vinyl train keeps rolling on and keeps giving us more of what we love. Thanks for watching, and cheers.